Growing up, there was this cinnamon bread that I used to love. It was from this bakery in San Jose called Greenlee's, and it had these defined characteristics like cinnamon swirls all throughout the bread, as well as this sort of hardened icing that was on the bottom, and the streusel topping on top. Now, because I no longer live in the Bay Area, I don't have access to this bread. So to make it, I decided to bake it from scratch by using nothing other than the ingredient list. And the first thing that I noticed on the ingredient list was yeast, which meant that I had to bloom it. So to do this, I added it to some water and a pinch of sugar. And then next up on the ingredient list was eggs, sugar, and canola oil. And then once that was mixed thoroughly, I added in my flour and my kosher salt. Now, in terms of quantity of ingredients, I applied what I had learned in college nutrition, so like breaking down the nutrition values of everything and then applying it to the ingredients used. It's obviously not going to give me an exact replica, but I felt like it was a pretty good baseline. Anyway, once I formed my dough, I kneaded it until it passed the window pane test, which literally just means that the gluten is developed, and then I placed that dough ball in a bowl to rise. Now, for the filling, I knew that it would require an ample amount of butter, sugar, and cinnamon, so I just took those 3 ingredients and placed them in a small bowl, and I mixed them until they became a smooth paste, sort of like a cinnamon roll filling. Then once that dough was doubled in size, I rolled it out into a large square, and then again, just like a cinnamon roll, I spread that filling nice and evenly over the top, and then to replicate the same cinnamon swirl that Greenlee's Bakery has, I folded it up, and then I kneaded it about 7 to 9 times until that cinnamon was evenly dispersed. And then once I felt like there was definitely a swirl in the bread, I rolled it into a loaf. I then greased a loaf pan with some butter and dusted it with a little extra cinnamon sugar. I then placed that loaf to rise in there one last time for around 30 to 45 minutes, and then I made my streusel topping with a little bit of butter, flour, sugar, and salt. I placed it right on top of that bread after it rose, and then I popped that bread in the oven to bake. And as it baked, I got started on the icing that I would be putting on the bottom of my bread. So I combined some milk, powdered sugar, and then it wasn't on the ingredient list, but I did add vanilla because like more flavor. And then once that bread was done baking, I turned it out on a wire rack, bottom side up, so that I could spread that icing right on top. And then once it hardened up, it was the moment of truth. Based on looks, it was pretty much identical. And in terms of taste, I think it tasted exactly the same. The recipe's on my Substack, linked in my profile.